belated Halloween, and welcome to another installment of Metalhead Central, the show where I take an honest look at the harder side of music and give it an honest rating. I hope some of you were able to catch the live review I did of the Alcest album from last week. For those of you who may not have seen it, it's up on my channel. So be sure and check that out when you can. This week, we're heading back to melodic death metal and examining an album with an appropriately spooky title for this time of year. It's Dawn of Disease's new effort, Procession of Ghosts, and it was released November 1st on Napalm Records. Now, this was a solid album. Just gonna come right out and say it, not gonna hold y'all in suspense. It was a very solid listen. I'll get into the reasons why here in a minute, but for those of you who may have other things to do, may not be able to watch the full video, I just want to let you know, kind of in overview fashion, this was a very solid album. Marred in a couple of areas, but overall, very solid. Now, let me get into the details. First, the positive stuff. This has a lot of melody going on. It reminds me a lot of Queen of Time by Amorphous, which, if you'll recall, made my top 10 albums from last year. It was a masterpiece. But where that album played around with atmosphere and submerged the listener within its sound, this album is more hardcore and on the nose, really hits you in the face in a lot of ways. There's a lot going on here, from death metal style blast beats to little bursts of quicker music that remind me a lot of punk rock, to beautiful strings that add just the right melodic touch to some of the choruses. I like how the band are willing to toy around with this idea of submersion. Whenever you feel like you're about to sink into the depths of their musicianship, they bludgeon you with a new guitar part or some intense drumming to wake you out of that sleep. This album is a great study in the contrasts between musical intensity and walking on the edge of an abyss. Procession of Ghosts is not only an excellent album title, but describes the music rather well as it kind of fades and then comes back and then fades and then comes back. A true apparition of sound. On the downside, the album is pretty poorly paced. It has a lot of peaks and valleys time-wise, and you never feel like you're allowed to properly appreciate the musical talent that's put on display here. It's either rushing to the next track or padding a song with some stuff that they've already done that just didn't feel warranted. Instead of stopping when they should, it feels like they needed something to fill the runtime, so they had the guys play the same riff from earlier in the song, and it just doesn't work. It's comparable to a bad jump scare in horror films. We are at the spookiest time of year, so here we go with another analogy. It's just something to say, "Whoo, look, a scary thing. We're a horror movie because we had a scary thing." You know, it's kind of like they went, "Ooh, look, we had a nice riff, so let's give you that riff again." I refute to a few things on this album as musical jump scares. I also have to criticize the lyricism on here. First of all, I understand that these guys are from Germany and English isn't their first language. I get that. But there are German bands out there who write English lyrics in a highly talented way. These guys, at least on this album, don't. While they aren't the worst lyrics ever, and I could talk about a lot of American and British bands who write terrible lyrics, it just feels like they need to be crafted and molded just a little bit more. All in all, Dawn of Disease have released an interesting, if not perfect, album. It lacks in pacing and lyrics, but it kind of makes up for it with its interesting soundscape. The tiniest bit of atmosphere plays with your ears while the rest of the band hammers away. Would I listen to the whole thing again? Maybe. There are definitely one or two songs on here I'd return to. But overall, I'd have to say this is kind of average as far as melodic death metal is concerned. Queen of Time, it ain't, but it's definitely got its niche. I'm giving Procession of Ghosts an 87 out of 100 on the YPS scale. Won't make album of the year, but there's some interesting stuff going on here. Take a listen if you want to. Thank you so much for watching. Click like and don't forget to subscribe. Next week, we're going to be examining the brand new album by hardcore punk / crossover / insert random thrashy genre here, Pioneer's Agnostic Front, called Get Loud. Oddly simple, yet seems oddly appropriate for that kind of a band. You've been watching Metalhead Central, where I give honest ratings to honest music, and I'll see y'all next time.